If you have a trust, do you also need a will? My name is Michael Pevney. I am an estate planning lawyer in Southern California. I set up estate plans for California families, and you can find a link to my website in the description below. So the question is, if you have a trust, do you also need a will? The short answer to that question is ultimately going to be yes. So first, let's talk a little bit about what a trust is in the first place. A trust is a legal document that says what you want to happen to your stuff, your property, both while you're alive and then also after you pass away. But it's key to note that a trust only controls property. It doesn't say what your last wishes are in terms of burial instructions. It does not appoint guardians for children. So it does have some limitations in that it is not in and of itself a complete estate plan. Also, a trust does not have or does not control anything that is not inside of the trust. So it's important after we create a trust that we fund the trust, especially with things like real estate. We want to write up a new deed to a home that we already own and file it with the county recorder's office, placing that home into the trust. We also want to title some financial accounts in the name of the trust, or sometimes we might want to make the trust the beneficiary of some other financial accounts. So if we have all this set up, why do we need a will? Well, the will, and it's a specific type of will, we call it a pour over will because the will in this case is not the central main estate planning document. The trust, the revocable living trust, typically is going to be that central estate planning document, but we want to have this will as well. And we call it a pour over will because what the will does is that it leaves everything to the trust. So it's a little bit of like a safety net. If in case something doesn't make it into the trust while we're alive or as a beneficiary when we pass away, I'm going to give you an example in a moment. The will leaves everything to that trust. And that can be very beneficial because sometimes if we have kids that maybe aren't super responsible, or we want them to reach a certain or specific milestone before they inherit some sort of property, the trust is going to control that. Whereas if we only had a will, the people that would inherit things would typically inherit things without any strings attached. So it literally, and excuse my crude model here, the will pours over any property that isn't inside of that trust to the trust once you pass away. And so here's a situation that every once in a while can come up. So we set up the estate plan, we put the home, in the trust and any other real estate, maybe that's a vacation home, maybe that's a rental property, we put all of that inside of the trust. But then you move, you sell the home, which you're able to do out of the trust, and then you buy a new home. But the new home title isn't taken properly, meaning it is taken in your name individually as opposed to your name or you and your spouse's name as trustees of the living trust. Now, what a pour over will can do in that situation is make sure that that home makes it into the trust after you pass away. So it's a little bit of a safety net. It's an extra provision to make certain that that what you want ultimately goes to the people that you want in the way that you want, because we really want to avoid probate. We don't want the government saying where our property goes. We want the trust saying where our property goes. And so the pour over will and the trust can often work together. Similarly, a will can also name guardians for any kids that are under the age of 18, and we can also include burial instructions or final last wishes. I typically include those two things that I just mentioned as their own separate independent documents, and we just have the will leave everything to the trust. Interestingly, in California, a will is not notarized, but it does have to be witnessed by two separate people. Pretty important that those people not be potential beneficiaries. So that is why Even if we have a trust, we need a will also. This very simple will called a pour-over will. So once again, my name is Michael Pevney. I'd like to thank you for your time and your attention. And if you have any questions about estate planning or probate, you can set up a time to meet with me for free if you're in California by going to my website. Should be in the description below. It's ocestateplanlawyer.com. And thank you for watching and listening.